Hey everyone, welcome to my class picking guide. The goal of these videos is a quick overview of the playstyle of each class rather than a comprehensive class guide. For this video in this new series, we'll be looking at the chairperson of June Bang class, or well, CJB for short because nobody has time to say or type that. A mage specialization which turns into military advisor when you complete your third job. CJB plays differently to Hermit by focusing on healing and support buffs to be the game's healing option. While CJB doesn't deal the AoE damage Hermit can, it does have single target options. Its damage can add up quite quickly. Aside from standard healer gameplay, CJB also has a nice array of support abilities, including powerful buffs, debuff purification, revives, and I will die on this hill, but the most OP PvP skill in the game, the mass crowd control hypnosis. I plan to give all classes a rating out of 5 for their difficulty to play in PvE and in PvP. This is strictly in comparison to each other. I'm not saying they're easy or hard compared to other games, and it is of course my opinion. So I went back and forth a lot on CJB, to be honest with you, but in PvE I've settled with a 4 out of 5 difficulty and PvP a 4.5 out of 5 difficulty. So I've given CJB a 4 out of 5 in PvE because of course you're healing people. It's a very important task, especially more difficult grind spots. This can mean that people's lives are essentially in your hands. So you're going to use a lot of group cure, and that's true that that's quite straightforward. And buffing isn't overall that difficult, but it's also important that you make sure that you single target heal someone who's getting lower. And it makes, also you've got a few like longer cooldown big heals when emergency to press as well. So there is quite a lot to keeping people alive, and there can be some high pressure healing going on, especially when you're dealing with bosses or when you're dealing with like mage parties when they've got massive lures. So there is quite a lot to do and to keep up with. So the PvP I've given a 4.5 out of 5, maybe it could even be a 5, but ultimately it's because CJB has a lot to do in any kind of PvP fight. The healing is of course incredibly important. You're healing different targets, using different healing skills, including your emergency heal buttons that can fully heal someone. So this is an important role. You have a couple extra things like purification that you're going to want to do when people are poisoned or they're crippled by curses, that kind of thing as well. You're probably also putting long range protection on your allies, but also you've of course got Hypno, which I referenced earlier. And no matter how OP I think it is a skill that you're going to use, and you've got to basically be in position to use it all the time as well as healing. It is incredibly important that you Hypno people. It's so powerful. But also CJB has that ability to be played offensively as well, and I think that's a kind of dynamic way to play the class that also adds an extra layer and depth to the class. So for that reason, that's why I've given it a pretty high rating in PvP compared to other classes. The core ability for CJB damage output is Soul Destruction. It's purely PvP, however, and mostly only used by those CJBs that build the class to go on the offensive, where they might use ice magic to slow enemies or shockwave for close range damage. In general though, CJB excels with its healing, so let's talk healing. CJB's healing essentially progresses from the skills you have before level 50. So your single target cure becomes cure grade 3, which is unlocked at level 51, then maxed by level 66 on grade 3. This heal scales with the character's wisdom count, and so it's your go-to for a single target spammable heal. You also gain an improved group cure, not to mention a variety of longer cooldown emergency massive heals that I mentioned before, like Perfect Group Cure 2, Perfect Cure, and Perfect Healing. These are massive heals, but obviously they do carry that longer cooldown. But CJB also really shines in its non-healing support skills in both PvE and PvP. Although all mages can learn speed if they want to sacrifice the skill points to do so, CJB gains major buffs to all primary attribute stats and also to your defense and critical hit rate. These buffs are highly welcomed in all types of parties and are a massive boost to performance. Since you can apply buffs to any player, including those not in your party, you might get asked a lot for buffs. As I said before, CJB gets a much improved revive called Summons, which revives a dead player and brings them back to your location, which is especially helpful in PvP, especially for those over-eager Andes who run off the Castle War Pyramid chasing a kill and then get themselves killed. CJBs also carry Purification, which can cure all debuffs from a player, which is really helpful, but also can be cheekily used offensively, resetting any immunity a player might have gained from debuffs like stuns, poison, slows, or hypno. So a brief overview of what CJB is all about is basically, this is the healer support for KalOnline. It actually has a solid amount of depth to it, and including all the playstyles and builds. CJBs are highly welcome for all types of parties, from physical attacker parties to mage parties to obviously doing bosses. Equip quick note on the third job and military advisor. Every class gets a passive damage boost when achieving the third job, and since it's the same, I haven't mentioned it previously. However, MA gets a defense boost instead. As for the active skill MA gets, it has Blessing, which applies invulnerability to you and your target starting at level 70, and at level 75 your second skill is Therapeutic Touch. Surprisingly, the first heal over time, or HOT, in the game, which provides a huge overall healing because it's a HOT. So yeah, you can preemptively use this before an engagement, which you can't with other heals because they're instant. This is so that, you know, if you anticipate that maybe your tank is going to go in and take a ton of damage, put the Therapeutic Touch on the tank, and then they start healing as they get the damage. So yeah, that wraps that up. Thanks for watching. Let me know if you plan to play CJB, and I'll see you in the next video.